Welcome to the Marathon Investigation Podcast, where we discuss and debate the latest news regarding course cutters, bandits, and bib mules.
Hey everybody, welcome to Marathon Investigation. I'm Scott Coomer with co-host Derek Murphy.
Hello.
And today we are going to talk to my friend Tony Portera, who is an accomplished ultra runner and has a lot of experience in bad water. And we're going to talk about his experiences in observing cheating, especially in bad water. So welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tony, before we get too deep into the subject of cheating, can you just tell us a little bit about you and about your running experience, kind of like set the table for who it is that we're talking to right now?
Yeah, sure. It's pretty simple. I'm just your basic middle of the pack ultra runner that's run marathons, plenty of ultra marathons over the course of the last 10 years. Probably like 30 or 40 100-mile races, 7 bad waters, couple Brazil 135s. Just middle of the pack guy, not going to win any races, and enjoy being out there, enjoy competing against myself. It's kind of interesting. I've actually run in several of the races that have been featured on Marathon Investigation with some of the runners that have been kind of called out or pointed out for cheating in various ways. So interesting stuff.
And by occupation, you're an attorney?
I am, yes.
And then what was your undergrad in?
I have a psychology degree from Vanderbilt University, then headed on to the University of Dayton School of Law for a law degree.
So we have a little bit of psychology and a little bit of law and a whole lot of experience racing and dig deep into the issue of cheating, which is awesome. Hey, just out of curiosity, when is the first time in your whole life that you remember being in a race where that involved cheating or an allegation of cheating?
Well, it's kind of interesting because especially in the ultra world, a lot of the ultra world, especially for the vast majority of people in a race, you really are competing against yourself. At least for me, that is. So I don't really, it's kind of an interesting concept for me because I don't really pay attention to it during a race. I'm so focused on getting through a 50-mile race or a 100-mile race and what it takes for me to overcome and to battle through that. It really was Derek's work on the Marathon Investigation site that kind of really opened my eyes to how wide the cheating could be and the different kinds of cheating. One of the runners he featured, I participated in 5 races with that particular runner. Another runner that he featured at the Pineland Farms trail race, I think it was last year.
Yes.
I was in that race. So, and one of my friends moved up from 3rd place to 2nd place because of that particular event of cheating. So witnessing it, and one of the runners that you featured, I've run in races and knew very well and helped a lot and was around this particular runner for a vast majority of some of the races that he's accused of cheating in. And to be honest with you, during an ultra race, I never really thought about it. Never really looked for it. I was more focused on myself.
So is this Kelly Agnew?
Yeah, that'd be Kelly.
And so let me ask you this. Prior to that article coming out by Derek, did you even have any idea that he had been cheating? Had you ever heard people accuse him of cheating, anything like that?
Not in the slightest. I've run in races with him since 2011. It is kind of interesting looking back on things and back on results. Like back in 2011, I finished ahead of him in the Javelina 100. I think I was around 21 hours and 30 some odd minutes, and he was maybe 20 minutes behind me, and never really thought about his past results compared to running with him at Jackpot, where he was crushing the 24-hour race and running 130, 140 plus miles in that race. So never really put 2 and 2 together until Derek wrote that article. And then it all came out, I guess it was at Across the Years, was it, with the whole big blow up. So really never really thought about him in that sense. Wonderful guy, wonderful family, him and his wife. helped them a lot when they went over to Brazil to run the Brazil 135 and across Brazil and the Camino de Fe, and I never really thought about it, to be honest with you.
Well, and
it's funny. Bart Yasso, we had him on, and he knew Kelly as well and said the same exact thing. Nice guy. His wife was great. I think he even mentioned the race in Brazil that he was, he was helping him out and, calling them. So, so that seems standard. I think there were just a handful of people maybe that were suspicious or knew. Again, one runner had witnessed it prior to that, and so that's why he was on the radar and being watched across the years. But everyone, generally across the board. I mean, there were some instances that came out after the fact with some message board activity they had with the runner's world, getting in with people, the comments with John Young. So there was stuff that came out after, but generally, face to face, people said he was a great guy.
Well, and it's weird too, because, in the ultra community, it's a small world, and I would go to Leadville every year, and Kelly would be there, and he'd be at the beer mile, and he'd be at the party at the New Balance house, and everybody knew him, and he was friends with, some of the really, really cool down-to-earth people in ultra running. And, that's kind of the weird thing about this from my perspective is, it just came out of the blue, like, holy shit. And it wasn't just, Kelly cut the course at some race. It was just like this massive conspiracy of many, 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 many races. And then by way of background, I did have a conversation with one of the race directors, who said, I know, and they were talking about him. I can tell now in retrospect, I know someone's cheating and I know how they're doing it. I just don't know how to catch them, and then came up with a plan to catch them. So there must have been some rumblings, but, for me, it was just a complete shock. Cause like Tony said, he was a really cool guy. His wife was really nice, and I still want to hear his story because I'm sure that there's a lot more to it than, I really wanted to, win this race or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know so much if you're gonna ever really hear his story. He seems to have pretty much disappeared and doesn't communicate as much with the people he used to communicate before. But somewhere along the way, though, like this concept of cheating is quite interesting to me. And the listening to the two of you discuss it and having different opinions on it and the public shaming aspect of it. And I listened to Bart's podcast you guys did, and I thought it was great. And I thought Bart had a lot of good points. And I also listened to your hour-long podcast with the gentleman on the triathlon incident.
Bill?
Which was also quite interesting.
I still haven't listened. I can't.
It's definitely quite interesting, and it's definitely frustrating at times to listen to, though, because you don't really get, a lot of answers to questions when you were asking them throughout the course of that podcast. But I think it's a good example, though, like the process of cheating and how it comes up, and then how it gets perpetuated, and how it becomes almost like a normal behavior for those people that are doing it. I'm sure at some point there was all, take Kelly, for example, there must have been that very first time that he cheated in a race, right? Or anybody for that matter. There's that very first time, and you get away with it or you don't get away with it. But I think it's just like DNFing an ultra race, Scott. I mean, you could probably relate to this, right? Like I used to talk to people and say, try to avoid not finishing a race and DNFing if you can, because the very first time you do it, you realize how easy it is to do it. And it becomes easier to do it the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth. It almost becomes a normal behavior for you. So at some point, it must have become normal for him to do it until he finally got caught. And the same goes with the woman in the triathlon that you were talking to Bill about. My take on that whole thing is she probably missed that loop, like you all said she did, whether it was poor race directing or whatnot, or she didn't know the course, she didn't go to the meeting, and she got away with it though, and she put it online, and nobody knew it. Nobody said anything about it at the race at the time, and then she was called out on it, and it became this, okay, well now I have to defend myself because I put myself out there to do it. And then the Bill guy got involved, and it just blew up completely out of control. So, it's kind of this downhill, that this effect of just growing on itself and becoming worse and worse and worse as you go. My mother used to tell me, you tell a lie and then you have to lie to back up that lie, and you keep going and going and going to try to prove something that, that you didn't do. And it's an interesting concept. It definitely fascinates me. So I'm enjoying listening to your podcast on it.
See, now, you know what I liken it to is for, like the best example I could come up with is as attorneys, we have what's called a client trust account where we put all the client money. And one of the big taboos in the legal world is don't ever screw around with the client money, ever. And every once in a while, you hear about a guy that got disbarred, and you kind of can see it happening. You're like, you couldn't make the mortgage, you panicked, you used the client money just this one time, and then it became just that one time, and then the next thing you know, it was like your second bank account, and then, all of a sudden the music stopped, and, you had used up all your client's money. And I think that it's like what you said, you kind of normalize the behavior, and it's not, like the first time you do it, you're like staying up at night going, holy shit, what if they find out? But then like the 10th time, you're like, nobody ever cares, I'm not going to get caught. And then eventually it's like, oh boy, now you got a big problem.
Oh, absolutely. To your point about the attorney and trust accounts, go watch the documentary called Unraveled about Mark Dreyer, who created and grew this giant law firm in New York City and was using his clients' trust money. And it just became more and more and more to the point where he was impersonating people to get loans to be able to put the money back into the accounts in order not to get caught, and he's in jail now. So,
that's like every pyramid scheme you hear about. It's like, okay, I'll do that. Eventually I'll pay him back. I'll be able to pay him back. Then it gets to the point where there's no way in hell everyone's getting paid.
It just keeps growing and growing. But, though, it's like, I get, there's different, like the gentleman Bill was saying on your podcast, like if you're going to cheat, you're going to cheat to win, right? Well, that's not necessarily true. People cheat for different reasons, right? People cheat to qualify for races. Like how many people have you found that didn't really qualify for Boston, or had somebody else run for them, right? Or you cheat to just finish. That was probably the case in that Badwater race in 2014, where there was a runner accused of cheating. No hard clad proof aside from runners back there going, wait, this person was behind me. How'd they get ahead of me? That person finished freaking 77th out of 83, less than 2 hours under the cutoff, right? So that person wasn't cheating to win, right? If that person actually cheated, that person was cheating to be able to finish and say they finished.
Yeah, and I've written about that. I'm happy to name that person. Again, you can say if they're cheating. I can say they likely cheated, but I think you're talking about Parvena, correct?
Yeah, correct. And I don't know that she did or didn't. I know about, what happened there, and I know about the accusations there. I read all about it and whatnot. I didn't see anything. I was much further ahead than she was. But that's an very easy race to cheat at. If you in the middle of the night, if you want to hop in a van and drive 10 miles ahead, it's a very easy one to cheat at. But honestly, to be honest with you, I don't know why you would want to cheat at races like that. Because I don't understand conceptually not doing something, not finishing something, and then walking home and saying that you did. I mean, you have your belt buckle or your medal and you put it up on your mantle and you walk by it every day. Do you really say, wow, I finished that event or that race? I mean, do you really? I wouldn't personally. That's.
Well, let's back up a little second, and can either you or Derek tell me the story of this Badwater cheating allegation? Like, what are the facts? What do we know that happened, and what was the aftermath, if anything?
You may know more about the Badwater specifically than I do. I know a lot about Parvena. I've written about her a few times. Basically, Parvena, she's a runner. She has set up her own race series. It's called. She's from Iran. It's called Iran Marathons, and it's basically it's in a park by her home, and there's probably 200 races a year. It was kind of set up to for people wanting to break the records for the most marathons in a year. Larry Macon has that record, and he said it doing a lot of those races because there weren't enough races to be able to break the record until these came up. And so she set up her own races, and there's with Larry, and there were a lot of cases where he had results there the same day he had results someplace else across the country. And so it appears that it was set up, and Parvena's in the results for every single race, and I have dozens of witnesses saying she just sits at the table and she doesn't run. So that's why I was looking at her, and I think this Badwater, I don't know if it's in that time frame where she was setting the record for the most marathons in a year. But again, it's, for her and some of this kind of not to throw it on the Marathon Maniacs, but for that group, it's just about quantity. It doesn't matter what your time is. If you know, and so Badwater would count, as a marathon because it's, it was over the distance. I don't know if it counted for 3 or what, but again, I think that was all about, kind of the count, the finish, the publicity with her. I mean, she wrote a book. She for a long time publicized the Badwater finish. So I think that was kind of ego, publicity, what have you. But yeah, in that case, I think that was one of those to say you finished. So so people cheat all the time, not just to win. I mean, I get reports of people cheating with 6.5 hour marathon times. That's, they were just cheating to defeat, to not get swept. So it's
sure.
So what's the story at that Badwater though? Like what are the facts that people know, or what is the thing that people are saying?
Well, for me, you want me to go take this one?
You go ahead. It was mostly eyewitness accounts.
Yeah, that's basically, my understanding is that that the claim, or and when we talk about eyewitness accounts, I don't think that anybody actually saw her hop in a van and drive forward X amount of miles to get ahead of them. I think that it was more of this person I remember being behind me, and I don't remember for the life of me this person passing me. And out there on that course, remember, you only have 100 people doing that race. And by the time you get to 100 miles especially, you're very spread out. Like, when people come past you, unless you're passed out in a van or a vehicle, right, or you're off on the side of the road and you don't realize, maybe, and your whole crew is asleep or something like that, and you don't realize it. And this was the year actually with the modified Badwater course. So it wasn't just point to point, right? There was a couple out and backs in there. So you would know when, and that was the claim. We don't remember her coming. She was behind us. We don't remember her coming in front of us. And that's the gist of it from my.
And it's not you; it's other people.
Other people, absolutely. I didn't hear about this until after the fact, and I was ahead of this point. I can't remember what my time was in this race. But this Parvaneh, or whatever her name was, finished somewhere, I want to say, around 46 hours plus. So you're talking about one of the last 6 or 7 people to actually cross the finish line in this race.
So then is there like mumbling at the race or at the finish of this? I mean, how does this play out in terms of the, allegations? Do people complain to Kostman? What happened?
I wasn't there for that part of it, but my understanding is that it started at the race and after the race, more like at the post-race get-together, and then just continued after that. Continued online, continued with some emails and stuff like that, and some postings and stuff like that.
Were there people alleging it on Facebook against her, and was she defending herself?
That I don't know. I know people were alleging it by email, and I don't remember if it was on Facebook or not, but I know that it was discussed.
I'll tell you, the funny thing with that is she herself and Larry Macon, who he's an attorney as well, and who I've written about. He was recently booted from the Maniacs because we had video proof of him cutting a course. But people are scared of him. People, when I reached out, it's like no one wanted to talk because of the threats of lawsuits and everything else, and that would come from kind of that group, anybody who accused Parveen of cheating or Larry, which I kind of lump them together because it's really the same story. But yeah, people. I mean, I was pulling up emails now to see if I had some details, and everyone's like, "Oh, a long time ago, I don't want to talk about it," or off the record, or not many people wanted to talk publicly. There was a lot of let's run chat about it, anonymous chat and whatnot. But they up until I kind of kept pounding on them. It was all kind of quiet, and no one seemed to want to speak out because of the threats, and it wasn't worth. Again, it's like, well, what did didn't.
I think that's where I think that's where I read most of the stuff about it was on that Let's Run website. But it's an interesting point, right? The lawsuits and the accuse me of cheating, right? So, like in this country, anybody can sue anybody for anything, right? It's a question of whether you're liable or not at the end of the day, and you're still going to spend money to defend something. So a lot of people shy away from saying things, and And, that's perfectly fine. But, look, let's not, I mean, cheating is cheating, right? But I can't imagine and there's different levels of it, I'm sure of it. But, I mean, the three of us sitting on this phone, can any one of us say that at some point in our lives we didn't cheat at something? Whether we cheated in the 9th grade and looked at our buddy's paper in calculus class or something like that? I mean,
well, I think that and that's one point that came out of the interview with Bill too, is if you were to believe what he was saying, and I do on some level, that, that's not necessarily a case where someone cheated as much as someone made a mistake and then lied to cover it up. But, based on what he was saying, I can't imagine that Anita was on her bike and was like, you know what? Screw this, man. I'm going to cut the course and then I'll have a better time. I don't think it's that situation as much as, oh my God, they're telling me that I didn't finish the course. I finished that whole course and then just went Rambo defensive rather than, thinking about it and taking calculated action. That's a very different thing, and I bet
didn't she have a Garmin on and it was short the distance? I mean,
right. So it was short exactly. So she had that, and then her initial post was, "Hey, I was the fastest woman, and I was only 10 minutes behind the top male." So she really pointed out the absurdity of hey, I just finished, and oh crap, I missed 7 miles on the bike. I mean, I think she probably could have done those 7 miles on the bike and still finished. Then she was bragging about how fast her bike time was, that she was the fastest overall woman.
Well, it's because she didn't do the whole thing.
I was really giving her the benefit of the doubt in emails after, trying to get something out of her, where I'm like, okay, well, maybe you didn't realize that you didn't do the whole thing. I understand that. Then once you did all this posting, you didn't feel like you could go back. So I was basically feeding, I was leading the witness there, and I was emailing her after we did the podcast. Then, of course, I was getting reasonable email responses from the person I believe was actually Anita. Then all of a sudden, after Anita's like, yeah, I'll get right back to you. I came back from my bike ride with some smiley emojis and stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm having a conversation. Next thing is like, why the hell aren't you letting this go? Pussy boy or whatever. And so it's so Bill took over the account, and that's the last I heard. So it's like, yes, but I was really giving her the benefit of the doubt of being able to say, well, yeah, I didn't realize I didn't do the full course until after the fact, and I'd already bragged, and I couldn't, then that's why the cover-up.
Look,
I could kind of understand.
Yeah, that entire situation is completely bizarre to me. And listening to you guys discuss it made it even more bizarre. But again, you go back to people nowadays have these watches, and they're live during the event, and I really think that if you've done the course. Most people, I mean, look, most people that I know, they know what the course is when they go into a course. They know they have to do 2 loops of this and 1 loop. I don't think I've ever encountered somebody in my experience that has shown up to race. And I'm sure there are many, many people that are like this and that do this that don't know what they're running, right? They don't know that it's a 3-loop course, or it's a 20 mile out and back 5 times, or whatever it is. And there comes a point, I suppose, if you miss the turn, because I've been at races too. I crewed a guy named Brian Powell, who Scotty Coomer, right?
Oh, sure.
That I Run Far, right?
Yeah.
He was running this race. I think it was the Virgil Crest race, and I was crewing and pacing him. And there was another guy at that race that went out on that course. I think it was a 100-mile race, and he missed he missed a portion of it. He got lost and he missed a portion, and he came back in, and he could have said nothing. But he said something. He said, "No, you need to disqualify me. I missed a whole section." And the race director, I think, said to him, "You can go back out and run it if you want to go make up the distance." He says, "No, I missed a whole section of it. I probably missed 10 miles of it." There comes a point where, especially today, where everybody has Garmin's. And I'll give you an example as it relates to me. I was running the Umstead 100-mile race, which is 8 12.5-mile loops. I can't remember the year I was running it. I finished loop 7, and they congratulated me on finishing the race. I knew I didn't finish 8 loops. I was only on 7. I paid to be out there for 8 loops. And I opened my mouth and I said, "No, look at my watch. I'm 12.5 miles short. I got another loop to go." And they went back and looked and go, "Oh, you're right." So the lady with the triathlon, I think you're right. She had a choice to make at some point to go, "Oh, you know what? Crap. I didn't do the second loop. I didn't realize there was 2 loops, or the course directions were horrible. They were terrible. And she didn't make that decision. She went on, she put online, I think you said she put online that she had a better split than the leading male or something like that. And then it
the
just,
fastest female,
like
10 minutes behind the lead male.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it just became so overblown for her, and the Bill guy got involved. And I really, truly feel bad for her, because I think the Bill guy made it worse for her.
Oh.
I really do.
He sure didn't
really
make it better. He sure didn't make it better. So.
I really do. But I honestly believe that she made a mistake out there, and that she didn't go in there saying, I'm going to cheat in this thing. I really, in listening to the whole story. But then I think you said she manipulated some Garmin data later. So again, it blows up on you, and you have to continue the process to cover up the initial action. And I think it's just it's unfortunate.
Well, I think another aspect of this is the development of social media, and the fact that likes and shares and comments on social media has become the new, social currency for some people. And, for example, I just messaged Derek before we called you that, there's a cheating case involving a girl in my area, at the Tunnel Hill 50 who, it's a long story. We don't have to go into it, but, she was 2 hours behind a bunch of my friends at the halfway mark, and then she ended up beating them by 3 hours. And she's like a 6-hour marathoner, and it's her first 100. So she negative split her first 100 by 5 hours, or she's cheated. And the other part of it is she's the only person that didn't have time splits for the second half of the race. So at the end of the day, we're just like, well, it's obvious that she cheated. And the race director moved her from 100 to 50. But there she is today, posting on Facebook, getting ready for my next 100-miler. Here's my training plan, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, everybody knows that you cheated, but you're still, that's the other part of it that I don't get. It's like, once you're caught and you keep on denying it and you keep, promoting the lie. And I think that's where a lot of these people get written about by Derek, and then they get the social media, albatross. It's just like, they just can't get enough of it. And then eventually it all comes crashing down on them.
Yeah. And the only reason she hasn't been written about is probably because I talked to you about it first. I'm like, well, I wouldn't have known about this. I did get other reports besides yours, but it's like, all right, we're dealing with it. And, eventually, and it took a little bit of work to even get it disqualified, and it should have been obvious. But they did the right thing. But yeah, so it's like, yes, normally she would have been written about probably by the next day. But then I'm like, all right, she's out of it, and she's kind of keeping quiet. So, but the results fixed. So let's just wait, sit back. But
so with this woman that was alleged to have cut or cheated at Badwater, she's still a finisher. There's never been any change to it or anything like that. Has she ever been, outed publicly as a cheater or written about or anything like that?
Oh yeah, she's it's fairly well known. Again, her big thing is, again, she's claims I don't know if she's at 1,000 lifetime marathons, but she's including her own races. Where again, I know she does not run those races. And again, she's in Guinness, and I've proven that. So I've written about her. She's been written not just by me; she's been written about locally. I know she was disqualified from the Houston Marathon for cutting the course a few years back. And again, someone wrote about that, and she went off on social media, says like, saying she's being defamed and all that stuff. When it was obvious that, hey, you got disqualified from Houston Marathon. Here's, it's in the article, and you're out of the results. But so she's been written about regarding the allegations. I think the last time I really wrote about her without just rehashing was she was in there's a marathon at Everest, like around the base camp and whatnot. And she was in the results there. And she was there. She was posting from Kathmandu. She was posting from the airport. The same day she was in results of her own marathon, where that was just absolutely impossible. And, I had screenshots where she was in that, and like, oh, it was a mistake. How do you mistakenly give somebody a time in a marathon they weren't at, unless you do it every single time? So it's, so I've written about her, and it's pretty, there's really not much debate amongst, anybody then. But then some people still say, hey, don't care, I'll still run the races and whatnot, and whatever. But it's crazy. That's an episode in of itself, with her and the whole multiple marathon records and just that kind of stuff that went on there.
Other than that instance, ridiculous. Tony, do you recall any other cases where someone was either suspected, accused, or found guilty of cheating at Badwater?
No, not really. Not that I can recall. I think there was somebody that had kind of put something out there, and I think it related to Dean Karnassus at one point, but I think it was just blown away or quashed. And to be honest with you, like, I don't know why anybody would want to cheat at Badwater. I mean, that's doing that 135 miles is, I mean, that's what you're there for. I mean, it's all a part of suffering. I mean, I don't know of anybody who's cheated at Badwater. I know of this one allegation. I don't know of any other allegations at all. But I can't imagine. I mean, just because of me, I would want every step of that course. It's very difficult to get into that race, and you spend a lot of money to do that race. Like, I don't understand going home with a belt buckle from that race and putting it up on your mantle or putting it in your case and looking at it all the time and saying, I skipped about 20 miles of that race. I can't fathom that. It doesn't connect with me.
Did Kelly Agnew beat you at races?
I finished ahead of him at Javelina when we did it together in 2011, probably by, I want to say maybe 20 minutes or so. All the jackpot races we did. So I ran 3 of those jackpot races with him, 2015, 16, and 17. I was in the 100 each time. He was in either the 24 or 48. So, did he beat me? No, we weren't in the same race. Was his 100-mile split 6 hours faster than mine? Yeah, probably.
And that didn't raise any red flags with you? No,
because I really didn't in the ultra community, especially for me being a back of the pack person. I think I finished in the top 3 in a race twice, and I think both times at jackpot. But being a middle of the pack person, I don't notice those things. I don't look at those things. I generally don't sift through the results and go, well, how'd that guy finish ahead of me? Because he's, I don't really know. I'm not studying the people in the race and seeing who I'm competing with. I'm competing with myself. That's why I think what Derek does, especially on the marathon side, I think it's really, I think Bart was saying, it's a really great thing. I'm not a big fan, like you are, Scott, of the public shaming thing, although I have a different opinion when people post all these things about, I just finished this race, I just qualified for Boston, I just did this, I did that, when they didn't really do it. Somebody ran for them or whatnot. But I would love to see the races taking more of the proactive stance on this, and having the results looked at and disqualifying people and having them post a list of disqualifications rather than the whole Facebook craziness and stuff like that. But I do understand what Bart was saying, you want to get rid of these people in the sport. But remember, he made an interesting point. They just go somewhere else and do it.
Where were we? Oh, what we're doing, and that. So one of the things that Tony was saying, because we just lost Derek, is that he appreciates what Derek's doing, just like Bart had said, but that he says he had kind of a different view for the people that post on social media about the fact that they achieved the goal that they didn't achieve. So in your mind, if I cheat at Boston and someone finds out that I cheated at Boston, and then I get busted or something like that, probably shouldn't be social media shamed. But what you're saying is, if I post nonstop about how awesome it is that I qualified for Boston and how badass beast mode I am, then you kind of feel like I have it coming.
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way. It's different today with social media because back in the day before the Facebooks and the Twitters and all that kind of stuff, none of this stuff you wouldn't even know about it, right? No, unless it was a big, huge case like cheating at the Boston Marathon and New York City Marathon or something like that. If I'm in a race and I know that somebody cheated and finished ahead of me, do I care? Yeah, I think I do. I'm busting my ass out there and I finished this course and I did it all, and that person cheated and didn't finish the whole thing. But does it hurt me personally in the end? To me, it's like the person that has not done something that they said that they did has to live with that. They know it. I mean, they know that they didn't finish that race. They know that they didn't cover 100 miles, 26.2 miles, 5K, whatever the distance is. And I kind of do distinguish between the people that cheat and take something away from other people's, like something tangible, right? Like, what was her name? Was it Maud at Pineland Farms? Was it?
Yes.
And that's a race where there's about 100 different ways you can cheat. That's like 2 sections with each section has different sections in it. You can easily jump and cut here and there. Very simple to do there. I distinguish between something like that where she won the race, right? So she didn't win any money.
She was on the podium. I don't know if maybe she's second overall. I don't recall exactly, but yeah, I think that.
Right, so maybe she's second overall,
but yeah, definitely.
The third place person was sitting on the third place rung, and then the fourth place person didn't really get to participate in it at all.
Right.
So I feel like, you're taking something away there. Versus like the person who finished dead last in that race, if they cut the course, I mean, who cares? Except for maybe people like me that say, well, that's kind of ridiculous. Everybody else is busting their butt out here, and that person cut the course. Why should they get the same thing that we get? But in the end, I look at them and go, they have to know they didn't finish the race, right? They have to go home saying, great, I have this medal, or I have, the cowbell that they give you at Pineland Farms, but I didn't finish the race. I mean, they have to know that.
Yeah, we're not that far. We don't differ that much on that. I mean, that's kind of more or less, who am I going to write about? Am I going to single out the runner who finished, the 6-hour marathon, or the runner that finished last? If that's all there was, no. But for example, I wrote on the Hawaii Marathon. I did a couple articles. On the runner, it was it wasn't a Boston qualifying time. It was over 4 hours, but she's a fitness professional, whatever that means, bodybuilder, personal trainer, coach, whatnot. And she, posted on Instagram that she started throwing up at mile 8 throughout the race, but she still got her PR. And this from a fitness coach. At first I'm like, well, that's kind of a bad example to, send to your clients and your 100,000 followers. And it was obvious that, she missed the key splits. She had like a 6-minute pace, 6 mile stretch in there somewhere. So it was pretty obvious. But again, I wrote about her again. It was more because of she's a coach. She's using that as, to get her followers to, theoretically build their business and all that stuff. So that's why I wrote about her, but it wasn't Boston qualifying time. So yeah, but yeah, there has to be something else if it's not, like you said, taking away the Boston spot. And if it's not a race that I'm just going to look at, like I'll look at the major races, I'll pull them down, look at results, and I might find some completely on my own. But usually I'm finding out about these people because of social media. It's their friends, it's their acquaintances who say, hey, this person posted, there's no way this person can run this time. Can you look at it? I mean, I get that every day. So most of what I write about, I'm, getting from tips these days. Again, because people are bragging on social media.
I think it's an interesting point to me that, so like, let's say this, I hate going back to this Badwater lady, but I'm just going to, for the sake of it, so let's say 15, 20 years ago, if Badwater's been around that long, nobody would know that she cheated, and she wouldn't be getting any kind of social reward necessarily for cheating. She would just basically have the buckle and put it on the wall, and it would be a buckle she didn't deserve. But today, someone like that, like let's say that I went to Badwater next year, cheated, finished in 30 hours or something, and it was like an impressive time for me, and I put it on social media, I'm going to get like thousands of people that are going to like it. People are going to ask me to be on podcasts. Maybe somebody's going to give me like some free products because I'm so popular on social media. Like all of those things are kind of like a difference maker today that would incentivize the everyday person to want to cheat. Like, for instance, this girl in my running group who finished, all she did was finish a 100-miler in like 25 hours. But the amount of social media attention that she got was astronomical, and I think that maybe that's part of what's driving the train of these people that are cheating.
I think it's definitely part of what's driving the train because I can also recall, it doesn't necessarily happen just in races, right? Like I can recall different situations where I used to read on some of the Facebook sites. I think one was this Florida Ultra Runners group where somebody posted, and I know I'm not getting it 100% accurate, but somebody posted that they did this run where they ran from one spot in Florida to another and posted their time and made a big deal about that. And then all of a sudden that person came under attack. And they wouldn't have come under attack otherwise had they not posted that online too. And then I don't know if you remember, there's that case of the gentleman that was running across America.
Rob Young,
yeah. He was running, right. And so, that was like a 3-month investigation where some of the most well-known people in ultra running went out there to monitor him and to find out whether he was cheating or not. So like cheating happens everywhere, right? In everyday life, there's cheating somewhere, right? Whether you don't report income on your taxes, right? That's cheating. I mean, cheating happens all over the place, and I don't distinguish between the person that cheats in a race and wins, or comes in second or comes in third, and the person that cheats in a race who comes in dead last, because in the end they've all done the same act of cheating, right? It's the same offense. There's just a different driving force behind it and a different result from it, and different ramifications and different effects of it.
Would you report them no matter what if you saw it with your own eyes?
That's a great question. Would I report them if they were cheating? I think what I would do, and I've never been in the situation where I've seen it happen. So a lot of times, you can say that you would do something under certain circumstances, but you really don't know until you're in those circumstances.
Agreed.
I think if I was running a race and I saw somebody cut the course, I would go up to that person and say, hey, listen, I know what you did. I saw it. And put the onus on that person to own up to it. I don't know if it would make a difference if it was a middle of the pack person, a person who finished, second to last and I saw them cheat, or somebody who goes out and wins a race and cheats, maybe I would say something there. But I've never been in that situation, so it's hard to say what I actually would or would do.
I think that what I would do is I would say, hey, Tony. First, I would say, hey, Tony, I think you missed this thing. I think you need to go fix that. And then if you said, no, I ran the whole course, I would say, all right, well, you didn't, you cheated, and I'm going to give you a chance to fix it. And if you don't, then I'm going to have to say something. Yeah,
that sounds fair. I mean, that sounds fair. And I think I would put it that way too. I'd say, hey, I think you might have missed this section, or I think you might have, made a mistake somewhere here or there. Because there could be that situation, like, what I think with that, potentially with that triathlete girl is, maybe she did miss a loop. Maybe she didn't realize. Maybe she was directed incorrectly.
It makes me think about, and I don't know if I've talked about this on this show before, but there's Ice Age 50 here in the Midwest?
Sure.
Yeah. So one of the guys on our show was at that race cheering for his wife, and he noticed that a girl was using a pacer, and pacers aren't allowed. And he didn't just see it once; he saw it like several times. And he's like, what? I mean, no, the girl, she didn't finish fast. Who gives a shit? I'm not going to say anything. And then one of the other things about this race is they have a strict 12-hour cutoff. So it's like you're 12 hours and 1 minute, screw you, no buckle, okay? And he just happened to notice somebody not making the cutoff and get in the tears, and they're not getting the buckle, and at the same time he saw this girl that had the pacer walking back from the table with her finisher award and her check for her winnings. They gave a little bit of money to the people, and it kind of raised in him this kind of sense of, that's just wrong. Like if you're going to say that this is a strict rule here, then that's got to be a strict rule there. So, and that's what caused him to go and tell. So, I mean, and I think the point of the story wasn't so much that instance of cheating as much as, it really depends on how you look at it and what your perspective is when you see it, because something that might seem completely innocent and you might say, well, they're finishing last anyway, who gives a crap, to somebody else's perspective might seem like it's a really big deal and it's totally not fair.
That makes sense to me. I mean, I think I agree with you. I think we share the same thoughts, on that. I mean, take Badwater is a great race, and you take Badwater for example, and I'm not saying anything negative about that race, because it's been the best thing for me. The 7 times I did it, I'll never forget each and every one of them. But there's, if there are certain rules during that race that if you watch video of them, you can see, you can look and go, hey, wait a minute, that person's not supposed to be moving at the same time as that other person. Like, so there's different levels of it. There's harmless aspects too. But the course cutting is really what the hopping in a van and taking a ride somewhere, or intentionally skipping loops. Those are the real. Those are the ones that are kind of real, especially when they take away from other people. And when Derek finds that people, wasn't there another gentleman that went and he was on the news because he got in trouble? He took his kid out of school. He went and run Boston.
Talking about him.
You guys all found, but that's a great example of, that guy took a spot away from somebody, didn't he? I mean,
yeah, he absolutely did. And we've talked about that, and we have a bonus episode about him because, again, he was kind of the reason, just before I had my site, I was following on Let's Run like everybody else. And it was just, after all that was kind of resolved and everyone believes he cheated and all that, then it's like it kept going and going. It became about much more. And so that's when I kind of said, well, is he the only cheater? And then I started looking, and that kind of led to the creation of my blog. And I'm still getting hounded today on why am I not pounding on the race for his disqualification? I'm like, it's been 4 years. Who's that going to benefit right now? That's kind of mine. And,
isn't that up to the race, though? I mean, if they don't want to disqualify the particular person, then that's their thing, right? It's their race, and they don't have to do it if they don't want to do it. Maybe they have reasons for not doing it or whatnot.
We talked to Bart about that, and I think up until the point where, again, I will pound on races who don't issue obvious disqualifications when there's like an active Boston Marathon implication where, hey, if they do the right thing, the person's going to not get their spot in Boston and somebody else is going to get in. So, I mean, I'll pound up until that point, until it's, pointless. Again, I haven't gone back on anybody from 4 years ago, and he's never run another race. He did. I think he tried, allegations he tried cheating at a turkey trot where Let's Run was offering money for certain things. And so I think the implication was that he was trying to, come under the time he needed for like a comparable 10K time to what the marathon time was he allegedly ran. So, but beyond that, he hasn't run anything. So I was like, I haven't gone back. I wouldn't go back on anybody else. This guy was one of 70 some runners that I've found to cheat in order to get into the 2015 Boston Marathon. Why am I going to focus on him now, not everybody else? And there's a whole lot more with him. I mean, he's a jerk. He's been arrested for getting in fights and domestic stuff and all that, but that's not my site. I care about the running, right. So I need to move on. But that's fascinating because there's so many levels on the social media shaming, because he shamed the principal for getting the form letter. And the principal got threats, and then then when it turned on him, then he's getting all kinds of backlash. But then he's fighting back and putting stuff out there and threatening the local news anchor. It's like, or allegedly, I should, somebody threatened the local news anchor, and he would be the top suspect. So it's like it's so crazy there.
But Tony brings up an interesting point, and that's that this the difference between a technical rule violation and cheating. And if, and like back to your Badwater example. So like, let's say somebody doesn't have their reflective shirt on, or somebody, like whatever the technical rule that they're violating is it willful? Is it meant to give them an advantage or whatever? And then I think that if you report it to the race director, or the race director says, you know what, right, Tony, you did break the rule. You're supposed to have a headlamp on. I'm going to punish you by putting a minute on your time or something like that, that doesn't need to be made into a federal case, and you don't need to be, an asterisk, and you're not a career cheater or anything like that. I mean, people make mistakes all the time.
Oh, definitely. I mean, without question, trust me, at that race, those technical violations, that race is run like they have course marshals on the course, officials on the course, checking everything. I mean, if you're doing something, you're most likely going to be caught, and you're going to get a little red mark on your bib that you've got a warning or whatnot. But those, like you said, those are more like little technical things, right? And the reality is too, though, is when I see a very big difference between the ultras and the marathons and the marathons that you're using to qualify for Bostons or other races. Although now there's a lot of races that you have to qualify for on the ultra side too, but I just see a big difference because, and I keep going back to Badwater. Take Badwater, for example. There's 100 people that start that race. There's 5 people that are competing to win that race. Maybe 10 people that are legitimately competing. And I think 10 is way too much, right? Everybody else is out there not to win that race. They're out there for an incredible experience, to see how much they can push themselves, to see what they can overcome, and to accomplish something great that they've prepared for.
Well, and that's
the vast majority of ultras.
It's an even bigger number in the marathon, right? I mean, in the Chicago Marathon, how many people are competing for the win? Like less than 1%.
They're not competing for the win, but but I think you can add some people who are maybe competing for like time, different time,
or to qualify.
Maybe
for
I can
Boston.
qualifying age groups. Yeah, like there's no age groups in most of these ultras.
No, there are now. Don't get me started on that.
I know. I don't want to get started on that one either.
But that's another reason why people cheat.
You're not winning a lot though, right? You're not winning money, are you?
Right. Well, you're getting like the extra ribbon with the two people on top of it, and it says age group second place, age 50 to 55. It's like,
I know.
You're going to cheat for that?
I just don't understand how you would accept something knowing that you cheated. It doesn't resonate with me. I am baffled by it. I'm confused by it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I do.
If you're between 55 and 60 and you're not getting that thing, I mean, what is there, like 3 people in the whole race that are getting that anyway?
Yeah, I mean that's probably
the age
probably
awards,
true.
I know when you're getting up there. I mean, I was at North Coast 24, and when you get into like the 70-year-old age groups, man, those people are vicious. They know where they stand. They know. I mean, it's a big deal.
Look, there's a huge psychological component to this entire thing, and I think that it's exacerbated by the fact that we have social media today. Right, our whole lives are about clicks and likes and hearts on Instagram and, retweets and likes over there too. Right. I mean, when you look at posts all over social media, like there's so much of it is looking for that like, or, somebody to give you, to kind of justify your accomplishment, to bolster you. And even when we fail, we go to social media because we want people to comment and like and say, hey, look, it's okay. We didn't have that back, before Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And I think social media exacerbates the psychological component of this whole process, right? And that's why maybe what you're saying, Scott, is you're not winning anything, but you are going online and you're getting that instant gratification. I got 1,000 likes because, I finished my first 100-mile race.
Yeah, see, but the weird thing is that in the failure, the attention that the failure gets, because I get a lot of that, for me, it's interesting because I equate that with that I can inspire people by trying to do something, even if I fail, and that, people will say, I saw that you failed, and so why am I afraid of failing? And they'll go and they'll try and do something anyway. So if I go and I finish some big race and 1,000 people like the post, I'll notice that, and it'll make me feel good that many people are giving me a congratulations. I don't have that same feeling when I post, I completely failed at this race. And I had a terrible day.
I totally agree with you, and I'm not. I don't mean to say it in a negative way.
Yeah,
there's the different spectrums of that on social media. I just think that from the point I'm trying to make, which maybe I poorly made, is from the cheating perspective. I think the social aspect of it for those that are cheating and not getting caught and not having an article written about them or whatnot, or it's exacerbated by the fact that they post that they've had this accomplishment and they get the 1,000 likes.
Yeah.
Well, I need another 1,000 likes, so I got to go out and do another one.
Well, and I think that the industry is also making this the way that, I mean, for example, like Derek was just talking about this girl with 100,000 followers, and I immediately thought, whoa, I've never heard of her, but I have heard of like Lisa Smith Batchen. I bet she doesn't have 100,000 followers. Like, why are we making these people so popular? And why are we giving them sponsorships and having them on podcasts and inviting them and giving them free entries to the races and things like that? Like, we have to stop making social media popularity be a currency in our country. I mean, that's how we get Trump, right? That's how Kim Kardashian gets famous. It's part of the same thing. It's this narcissistic, let's just, elevate the popular people type mentality.
Well, I can do a whole thing, and I've kind of hit on it as far as like the whole ambassador programs and just having followers. It's basically slave labor for the for the companies that hey promote our stuff.
100%.
We'll give you a few free products, and then then they have their minions, and they got their people all promoting their products. So it's very cheap marketing for a lot of these companies. And then someone says, "Hey, I'm an ambassador," or they'll say they're a sponsor. They're sponsored. Right. Well, no, they're one of hundreds. So
I'll give you a $2 bottle, water bottle.
Charges a fee to promote their product.
Yeah,
it's a scam.
I'll give you a $2 water bottle, and you whore yourself on social media and tell them all that you're an ambassador of my program, and then we'll sell like $2 million more worth of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think that whole program, I don't know. Yeah, there's some, again, I think Oisel's the one that I've written about in the past as far as, the kind of cult mentality.
Orange mud, that's everywhere.
People, but Oisel was basically, I think they pay like about $100 a year to be, in order to get some discounts on some very expensive merchandise. And, and then if you become successful to try to get out of the deal, is another thing. It's ridiculous. There was a big story where they basically shamed one of their athletes who was, basically wasn't getting any, wasn't really making much, maybe a couple grand from Oisel, but, then, she set an American record, and I think it was the,
Oh, we could talk about that. Stays. No, I got some inside information on that one. I know about that.
I've talked to her. I've talked to Tori, but it's like, but it's been, or I've written Tori. I haven't talked to her, but that's crazy. And then they would, they support you and tell you, to the point where it's time to, to move on and better yourself, and they don't support you. So it's.
Well, look at Tony. He's a 7-time Badwater finisher. Do you have any sponsors, Tony?
No, I don't. I mean. I'm pretty weak, man. No, I used to listen. Like, I have products that I like and that I promote. I mean, Dry Max Socks has given me plenty of socks over the course of time. And I think at one time I was one of those Brooks ambassadors that came along with like a discount or something like that, but you really didn't have to do anything. Like, there wasn't really much to it.
Pure Vitamin Club, they helped you with your Badwater, right?
Pure Vitamin Club is.
I'm a subscriber.
Great.
I love them.
But I pay for my vitamins. I don't get anything for free there.
Have you tried that salt yet?
I haven't, but I will. Although Vinny and Serena have both crewed me, which is payment enough for talking about their product, because they're awesome and amazing. So, but maybe if I cheat a little bit and won a few races, I get some more sponsors.
Well, if you ever want to find a race to cheat at, I know a guy that probably knows the best and easiest races to cheat at.
I was going to try it at the Badger 100. I think there's some new race coming up or something.
Oh, you could totally doesn't care. You could totally cheat at that.
It's out and back. I can jump in the bushes or somewhere and just
it's like 3 loops. Oh yeah, piece of cake.
Yeah, but the problem's going to be, I'll just say, hey Siva, how many times did you see Tony Portera? She's like, who's that? And be like, yep, disqualified.
Look, I tell you, man, I hope you guys get some of these people on that have been accused of cheating, because I really would like to hear in your podcast, not the type of conversation you had with Bill,
right?
Because that was, to me, pointless and a waste.
We can get him on. This guy can give him a call.
Bill? Should we call Bill?
Bill, come back on. I mean, look, I understand what he was saying. Who cares, right? Well, right. There are people that do care, right? But I do understand what you're saying. Who cares? It's over. Although he kind of perpetuated the situation, right? Because he emailed you that morning.
Yeah. Why are you doing that? Well, because he emailed me this morning, Bill.
But Tony, you've listened to me interview a lot of people. You can't tell me that me and Kelly Agnew would not be really interesting.
I think all three of you would be great. And I would love to hear, honestly, I'd love to hear Kelly's story. I really would. I would love to understand when it began for him and what he was thinking, what his thought process was, and how it got out of control for him. I mean, I don't know how many it happened at.
He has nothing to lose, though. I mean, we could humanize him, and it could be catharsis, and people might listen and they might be like, you know what, I feel sorry for him. Like, I can see that happening to me.
Yes, but I can also understand possibly what's going through his mind is an embarrassment by it and from it, and a desire just to move on from it and not deal with it and not think about it as much as he can and just kind of move on to whatever next phase of his. I don't think he's entered another race.
No.
And I don't think he will. But all I can tell you is my experiences with him were extremely positive, never negative. Always in the races that I ran with him, whether he was cheating or not, he was tremendously supportive of me.
Me too.
In the race that he was disqualified from was the first 100-mile race I went under 19 hours. And he was very supportive of me through that entire race and offered to help me. And so did Joe, his wife. And when they went to Brazil and they had some issues with the course, knowing that I'd been there 2 or 3 times, they called me up on the phone to ask me for help, and I was happy to help them. So I would love to hear from him, but I do understand if he would be reluctant to talk to you and to Derek, although I think it would be a great conversation to have.
But do you think, as far as what I had heard from some other runners, as far as the nice him being that he was very tight with a lot of the race directors, and that that was kind of a strategy of his? Hey, it's such a nice guy, and people wouldn't suspect or would give him the benefit of the doubt. Do you think that was kind of an intentional thing, or you think genuinely he's a nice guy?
I think that's just ultra running.
Bad thing.
I think that's just ultra running too. I just don't think it's that a sophisticated process. I mean, I can see looking at a race course and going, this is where I can cheat and that's where I can cheat. But I mean, to really make it into this whole conspiracy type thing, like I'm going to befriend these particular race directors so they'll never suspect that I did anything. I don't know. I think that's.
Yeah, that's what I had heard. And that was, that's not me just, saying that as marathon investigation guy. That's, part of what I heard from, one of the runners I talked to. So yeah, and I just don't know. But that's the one. Like I've done I've done North Coast 24 3 times. I've done the loop races, and to me, to be able to cheat at one of those, because you see those people, you're seeing the same people 24 straight hours multiple times, and to be able to. Yeah, I just can't fathom, like someone cheating for Boston, you're taking a spot from some invisible, unknown, anonymous person. I can almost see how someone can justify that. You don't really see the victim. You don't, recognize who you're taking something from. But, to not only cheat, but to cheat your way to first place multiple times. Yeah, there's something. Yeah.
Well, and I want to know, like, what was he thinking, like, at night when he laid in bed? Then his whole life was a fraud, I mean, that's got to just be terrible. Like when I heard an interview of Lance Armstrong, I think it was on Rogan, he was talking about, telling his kids that he didn't cheat when they would come home from school and tell him that the kids at school were saying he was a cheater. And he'd be like, no, I wasn't a cheater. You go tell them. And then when he did come out and say he was cheating, to have to go and face his kids and tell his kids that he lied to them about kids, like that, just how hard that must be to live that lie.
Oh, for sure. I wouldn't say that, Kelly's whole life was a fraud, right? Ultra running is a very small part of probably his life. I mean, as opposed to the Lance Armstrong example, cycling was his whole life, right? I mean, that's where he made all his money.
But it is. But I mean, I know what you're saying. He wasn't a professional runner, so to speak. But you know how ultra running is. I mean, you're an exception because you have this, life and this job and family. But I mean, a lot of these ultra runners, all their friends are ultra runners. All their weekends are spent going to races, crewing at races, pacing at races, being at races. Like ultra running is all consuming to some of these people's lives.
Oh, sure. I distinguish between Lance Armstrong and Kelly Agnew in a big way. I think they're polar. I mean, they did the same thing, right? The acts are the same, but I don't think ultra running was Kelly's whole life. Maybe it was. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do hear what you're saying. It is all consuming. It's a lot, and back when I didn't have 2 kids that were in high school and about to go to college, ultra running was a huge part of my life. It wasn't my whole life, but it was a huge part of it, and I really enjoyed it. And it's disappointing that there are people cheating in it. It really is to me, because I think those people are, for the most part, only cheating themselves.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you mentioned, and this is a debate I've had as far as, you say Lance and Kelly did the same thing. Now, I know a lot of people, I heard both sides say, hey, course cut errors are worse than drug cheats. At least the drug cheats, at least Lance did the whole course. Lance did all the distance. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on as far as how do you kind of rank the two? Somebody who's going to cut a course versus a drug cheat. Do you differentiate between that? It sounds like you don't.
My position. Well, look, cheating is cheating, right? I mean, there's various ways to cheat, and cheating is cheating, no matter how you do it, right? If you're taking drugs and PEDs, you're cheating and gaining advantage that way. If you're cutting the course, you're cheating and gaining an advantage that way by not running the whole race. Yeah, great. Lance did the whole course, but he did it with PEDs. Maybe he wouldn't have done it with.
But in bicycling, what if, I don't know what the percent is, what if 80% of people, biking a course are using PEDs?
Yeah, they're all cheating, right?
I mean, they're all cheating. There's so many layers and so many kind of in my head. I know it should all be the same, but I'm like, I hate the course cutter more, and it should absolutely not be the case. I mean, I mean, to me, if you've cheated in a race, you've cheated in a race. No matter how you've done it, whether you've cut a course or you've taken drugs or you've taken a ride in a vehicle and skipped a portion of the course, it's still the act itself of cheating is cheating. I mean, yes, it's a different way of cheating, and I get that, and the different way you've cheated may have given you a different advantage over the other way. But in the end, what is the end result? What should the end result be for each case? Yeah,
it should be disqualification, right?
It's like what's kind of like, I think, even though the testing, like in bicycling, is kind of in a way was like accepted, like in baseball, right. stealing signs. Yeah, everyone does it. It's done. It's kind of accepted.
All right, I'm calling bullshit on that, because if we were all in an ultra, let's say we're all in an ultra together, it's 100-miler, we're in a pack of 20 people in the lead, and all 20 people decide they're going to cut the course together. Does that make it better that I'm cutting the course?
Wait, say it again. You're in an ultra. The top 20 people all decide to cut a course.
Oh, well, I'm in the front of the pack, so this is a realistic example. And all 20 of us are in the front together, and then one guy says, "Hey, I know a shortcut," and all 20 people cut the course together. Does that make it okay? I mean, or do you? I want to be the guy that says, "You guys go ahead. I'm going to come in 20th place, and I'm going to run the fucking course."
Of course. No, it doesn't make it any better.
So why is it okay for Lance and biking then? People always use that argument.
No, I didn't say.
I don't think they're saying that.
I was just asking a question. Say, do you, is there a do you differentiate if everybody's doing it? Kind of the baseball example.
No.
Steal signs, but you're not allowed.
No.
Who cares if everybody's doing it? If it's wrong, it's wrong.
Listen, if everybody's doing it, maybe it shouldn't be a
everyone's I mean, I'm trying to think of the applicable rule, hey, you're not actually touching second base when you're sliding it. Yeah, I mean, there's something that everyone knows, everyone does it, it's accepted. The referees aren't, looking at that. So yeah, there's a line there. I don't know where it is. And I don't think it's with taking drugs. Believe me, no.
I mean, it's not like, that accidentally didn't touch the base, but the ref overlooks it is not the same as I'm going to jam these drugs in my vein.
They're not going to call it, so you don't even try to touch the base. Oh, hey, is that cheating? Because you're not going to get caught. They're not going to call it.
There's an umpire standing right above the base.
I mean, it's, as years go on, it's like, you're 2 feet away. They always call it out. So, so it's fine. I'm not going to try it. Now I'm going to be 2.5, now I'm going to be another few inches off. And so it's, it's good. You can get away with it because they're not going to call it. So you're not trying to touch the base because you don't want to get your ankle broken.
With all these cameras and instant replay, it's almost impossible these days.
It is an interesting point. And there's I think he's a professor of law at Yale, Stephen Carter. He wrote a book called Integrity, and one of the examples he uses of integrity, or the problematic nature of integrity in our society, is in sports, that if a wide receiver catches the ball and he kind of bobbles it and then he lands on it, but it's not really a catch, and then they call it a catch, that no one expects the wide receiver to walk up to the ref and say, "Hey, listen, I didn't really catch that ball." They would boo him off the field, that is kind of a strange social situation.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up, because if you go look, you can find some of these examples on YouTube in the sport of soccer, which is a sport that I played and a sport that I coach. There are examples of situations in games where referees have made calls, and the best of you, if you look them up on YouTube, most of them surround penalty kicks. They call a penalty kick that they missed. They blew it 100%, and a guy coming up taking a penalty kick misses it on purpose.
To make up for the fact that of the blown call?
To make up for the fact, correct. So it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but that's the example you're trying to say that you're making. You're like, oh, you wouldn't expect the receiver. Of course not, you wouldn't expect the receiver to come up and do it. But I've seen it happen in the sport of soccer.
Yeah, well,
like in baseball last year, in baseball, you have the guy, he went in the stands to, catch the ball. He went over the, third base line. He didn't catch the ball, but he picked up, he had a kid's souvenir ball was right there. He took that and then he threw it back. He threw it in. And they credit with the catch, and you never had the ball, and you knew it. So that's a little further, but everyone laughed it off. No one said, "Oh, what a horror!" Hey, but he's a gamer. That's great.
It's called heads-up gamesmanship. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
he cheated. But
yeah,
everyone thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, now that's cheating. But now, Scott, in your example though, with the wide receiver, who did he make the catch or did he not? Is that really cheating though?
Well, kind of the same as them saying you finished when you had one more lap to do. I mean, yep. He said I was done. I'm done. He said I caught it.
Yeah, but in the case, you have officials there and they're making the call whether you caught it or not. Like it's not like you're playing touch football and you have to, and it's on your honor, right? Did he tag me? Did he not tag me? It's like you have 6 or 7 officials at that game and cameras at 10 different angles, and that's part of the game, right? If they make that call, they make that call. Is it cheating in football when they screw up and they give them a 5th down instead of having 4 downs, right? I mean, we've seen that happen before, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I see it baseball. I see it. Let's get an extra strike, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is that cheating or is it just a mistake in the game? And you play the game in that way. I think it's a little different than cutting a cord. I mean, look, it's an interesting conversation. I love that you guys are doing this in a podcast form but I really would love to see you get some more other people. I would love for that girl Anita to come on.
We're working on it. Yeah. We've got some others. I'm working. We just need to schedule with the DECA man, Alex. We're looking to get her on. One I wrote about who in that event just still baffles me. I mean, to do basically however held 10 triathlons, whatever the total. It's like 200-mile run or whatever, and she's what it looks like she missed was a very small percentage of that whole race. But why the hell would you, do that? You did all this, and you ran 180 miles out of 200.
It's an interesting point too, that if anybody knows that someone's suspected of cheating, or someone that if there's anyone out there listening that did cheat and got caught and wants to talk about their experience, that we would love to hear from those people.
Yeah, you could be anonymous. I don't know. I would just love to get the why.
Confessions of a cheater.
I had one conversation, and it was the woman who was on Today's Show who, and it was the same kind of thing. It's like the first time was an accident. Her husband would run with her chip, and so she'd get credit with the time. It was just a social media thing is how it started, because she stopped running with her own chip because somebody, an old roommate of hers, her old college friend, said she thought she had a good time. So, boy, what happened? You're really slow. And for somebody who has other depression issues and anxiety, that was enough to push over. She's like, I don't want to run again. So she would run, but she'd take her chip off her bib. Well, then, or whatever. So what she says is her husband, they switched bibs one time by accident. So she had her husband's bib, didn't have a time, and her husband's time was as hers. And then, hey, she had a real fast time. She's getting all these people are commenting to her. And so then they would always do that. He would always run with her chip, to the point. Then she got an age group award. She accepted that award, and it got worse and worse and worse until I caught her. Then it ended, and she fully admitted and hasn't cheated since. But
did she admit it? Did she admit it to you before you wrote your article, or did?
Yeah,
how did that happen?
It was probably fortunate that it was going to be featured on the Today Show. So my whole with Today Show, I was to look at the Philadelphia Marathon results, and she was one of those results. And there was a lot of past, and I kind of knew about the past, and it came up again. So so she admitted and she didn't know it was going to be on the Today Show. It's like, hey, a marathon investigation. Here's what I found. Can you tell me? At first she's kind of denying, then eventually she admitted it. And this was all before. It wasn't she admitted it because she knew she was going to be featured on the Today Show. But I had to yes, I mean, I had to, once I laid out everything, said, hey, so I know she finally, finally came clean. And then she wrote, she wrote in her own words the article I published. It's like, and I made sure she knew, hey, I'm not going to name you in the article. I may write about the situation. I'm not going to name you, but I would love to get your explanation as to how this escalated. And she did that. And I still text and talk to her today. So
you never named her though, right?
No, never named her.
Right. Okay. So
she was on Today's Show, but she was in shadow and voice alters and everything else. And I never did name her. And I could tell just like in her situation, I'm glad she talked to me because I may have initially, because there's a lot of other layers for, right now, just on the basics. Yeah, that's somebody I would name, based on other things. But again, she was truly remorseful. She fully admitted it. Again, anybody admits it up front, and I'm not going to name them. But that doesn't happen frequently.
Well, I hope somebody out there is listening to this and they're friends with Kelly Agnew or someone else, and they're like, hey, you should go on and talk to those guys that, that they're going to be fair, they're going to be cool. We're more interested in learning than shaming or maybe Derek's more interested in shaming. I'm certainly not. But
at this point, no. I would like the people, more just kind of learn the people that, I did cheat, than the Bill type arguments. Like I would like to talk to Maud. Maud's admitted it. Maud's come clean. Maud's gone on social media and apologized to the people whose spot she took. She's, people still complain about what's her motivation. Well, hey, nobody ever admits it. I'm just happy that, hey, she admitted it. And
let's get her on to talk about her motivation.
I'd love to talk to her about that.
Also, if anyone's listening to this and they want to help out the show, there's a few different ways you can do it. One, the easiest is whatever you're using to listen to this, iTunes or whatever. Subscribe to the show, rate the show, and review the show on iTunes. There's been a couple very negative reviews about my conversation with Bill. Keep them coming. I enjoyed that because if it wasn't polarizing, it wouldn't be interesting. And the other thing you can do is you can become a patron. We just put down an episode of me and Derek talking about Mike Rossi and kind of like the beginning of that story. So if you become a patron, there's different levels and different awards, and it gets you access to some of those conversations. And it also, more importantly, helps finance this and pay for the bandwidth and all of those sorts of things. So think about doing those things to support us.
Absolutely. And marathoninvestigation.com, Facebook, Marathon Investigation, Twitter, just look up Derek Murphy. And make sure you listen to Scott's podcast, 10 Junk Miles. It's good for your long runs. It's kind of usually loose, fun, talking, a lot of cussing.
Tony has won some races listening to 10 Junk Miles.
I don't know about that.
Tony has been competitive in some races.
Was he wearing headphones during the race? I'm sure that's not allowed. That's cheating.
No. All right. So that's going to do it.
Thank you for listening to the Marathon Investigation Podcast. Have a questionable result to report? Visit marathoninvestigation.com to contact us or email Derek at results@marathoninvestigation.com.
Another case closed for the Marathon's silent guardian.